And welcome to DevOpsCon. I'm here with Julia Wester. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
You just finished your session and you had a workshop yesterday, am I right?
Yes.
So what was the topic of your workshop and your session today?
Yeah, my workshop was a full-day workshop on winning at DevOps with Kanban. So DevOps, there are 3 ways of DevOps: flow, feedback loops, and continuous learning and experimentation. And those map really closely with the principles of Kanban. So you can use Kanban as a tool to help improve the flow of work through your DevOps systems. So that's what that was on. And then today, the talk was on finding metrics that matter and using them safely. Because we have a lot of metrics, not all of them matter, and we cause a lot of damage without knowing it and how we use our metrics. So it's an important topic to talk about.
So you just said it. We have tons of data, and that's usually a good thing, but that can also be a disadvantage because they can lead us astray if we don't know exactly what we are doing. Yep. So my first question would be, how can we make sure that the metrics actually help us and don't work against us?
Yeah, so the first thing that we want to do is we need to make sure that we can map every metric to an outcome we want to achieve. So if we can't do that, if it doesn't matter to our customer, doesn't help us make a decision or take an action, then we probably shouldn't be measuring it in the first place. It has the ability to cause more damage than help. And there is a really good framework or an acronym, ODIM, O-D-I-M, outcomes that we want to achieve, and we can help think what decisions do we need to make to help us achieve that outcome, what insights will help us make the decisions, and what metrics will give us the insights. And when we do a little bit of walking that path backwards from our outcomes, we can find the metrics that can really help us achieve our goals instead of doing what we normally do, which is use what's available, use what's easy and free in the tools that we have.
So is this the way that we can make sure we are measuring the stuff that's important enough, or are there perhaps other ways to do it?
Yeah, I think that is a key way, because if you can't map your metrics to outcomes, then why are we measuring it, right? And there are lots of other things that we can do to make sure that we're using our metrics safely. One thing is, if we are trying to have a great team deliver a great product, but we measure individuals, and we learn that doing that causes individuals to act in their own best interest instead of the team, that's an example of a way we can cause a dysfunction with a metric. So if we look at what's actually happening because of the metrics we're gathering, and we do a really detailed sort of dive or analysis, we might find some ways that we thought our metric was good, but it's actually hurting us instead of helping us. And that can help us sort of auto-correct a little bit back towards the right metrics to have. So not only do we need to map them to outcomes, but we need to look through and anticipate all of the things that it could cause people to do, what behaviors every metric can drive, and see if on balance there's more good than bad, and try to mitigate some of the bad behaviors that a metric might cause if sort of left unchecked.
Mm-hmm. And what are, for example, the pitfalls? What happens when we misuse our data or metrics?
Yeah, well, I mean, it can really depend on which metric it is. So if I use that as an example, if I measure my individuals instead of my team, then we have a lot of people trying to be the superstar, competing with other people, and instead of collaborating to try to make a team that can deliver much more. A team is more than the sum of a bunch of individuals, and people that are really looking out for themselves, either consciously or subconsciously, aren't really invested in helping the team deliver a stellar product. So we don't want that unhealthy competition. We want the healthy cooperative play, or the collaborative work that gets us closer to what we're trying to achieve. So that's just one example, but you could look at any different metric, talk about how, what the dysfunction is that it might cause, and then try to gauge the impact of what that bad behavior could actually do to your organization. That's one of the exercises that I showed that people can walk through with their teams, because if I do sort of that exercise by myself as a manager, I'm only going to think of a small portion of the things that are possible, but it's so much fun for the team to sit down and think, how can I ruin the world by making this number look great? And you get all of this information that you never would have thought of on your own. And that builds team, trust and workmanship, and you learn a lot about how to make your metrics safer as well.
And talking about that, what are the key attributes of good metrics?
Yeah, the key attributes of good metrics are, one thing that we say is to look at trends over time. So instead of getting too boggled down with individual data points, that we look in the direction we're going and how far we're veering off the path that we want to be, so that we can understand how much of a problem do we have. So key attributes, it has trends, not just data points. It has a meaning, associated with it. So I said earlier, does this matter to my customer, or does it help me make a decision or action? It needs to have a purpose that helps us achieve our goal. The more interactive and beautiful we can make our metrics, the more people want to look at them and interact with them to learn more information. So if you can have interactive charts, even better. So you show what people need to see at a glance, but you have the ability for people to interact with them and find more granular data. Things like that are just really good things to have. And each metric, will need to be relayed or shown in a different way. So as far as visual attributes, that's going to differ depending on what the metric is, except pie charts. Don't use pie charts.
Good to know.
Yeah, they're usually not very helpful except for making fun memes on the internet.
Makes sense. And if you were to choose one piece of advice on how to use metrics safely, what would that be? Just one.
Yeah, I would say make sure you think about, with your team, the damage you can do by blindly optimizing for a metric. And so if you don't look to see what unintended consequences it could cause, we know what intended consequence we want from that. But if we don't at least take the time to think about how people might try to optimize for that but cause problems, then we're sort of we're choosing to be blind to part of the system that we're introducing, the changes that we're making in our system. So we don't want to be blind, we want to be going into this with our eyes wide open. So that was the biggest piece of advice I'd probably say.
And last but not least, since we are at the DevOps conference, so measurement and metrics are a key tenet of any DevOps transformation, right? So how can well-defined metrics enhance DevOps success? Yeah,
I like to take things back to flow. So one of the three ways of DevOps is flow. And we care a lot about, especially from code commit to deployment, how can we optimize for the flow of work through that part of the process. So understanding how fast things move, how many things we get done, understanding the efficiency of the process that we have in place, that is all of those things help us really improve the ability to have that flow in our DevOps system. And then taking it not just from code commit to deploy, but shifting left and including more and more of the process in that just lets us have improvements across much more of the system. We're talking a lot in DevOps conferences about including more of the workflow, not just from commit to deploy, but a lot of our metrics are still there from commit to deploy. So I'm proposing that we sort of shift left on those two and include a wider swath, going farther towards end-to-end measuring of all of these things. Because we can make the very end part go as fast as we want, but if we're not improving the stuff before it, we're not going to have as much that can flow through that end. So we have to sort of evenly fix our system. We don't want to over-optimize for the part at the very end. So I think metrics have a tremendous impact on our DevOps organization, and focusing on flow, which is a key way of DevOps, is one of the best things that we can do to improve our systems.
That's a great takeaway right there. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.